In 1945, as the Third Reich crumbled, the most feared military force in Nazi Germany faced a terrifying reality. The elite Waffen-SS, Hitler's fanatical warriors, were about to discover that their reputation for brutality would seal their own horrific fate. The world was faced with the difficult challenge of pursuing justice for the crimes done by the Nazi dictatorship in the chaotic and transformative years after World War II. And among the most notable offenders were, of course, the members of the SS. So come along as we explore the horrific fate of SS members following World War II. But first, welcome to Through the Ages, where we uncover history's darkest secrets. Before we dive deeper into this disturbing story, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to join the millions uncovering the untold truths they don't want you to know. Founded in 1925, the Schutzstaffel, SS German for Protective Echelon, initially served as Nazi Party leader Adolf Hitler's personal bodyguards, and later became one of the most powerful and feared organizations in all of Nazi Germany. They were in charge of carrying out mass murders, managing concentration camps, and implementing Nazi policies. In the chaotic final days of the war, SS units were often deployed in efforts to hold off progressing Allied troops. As the SS battled to the very last, these encounters were characterized by extreme brutality and despair. Moreover, in Berlin, the SS was crucial for defending the city. SS units including the 11th SS Volunteer Panzergrenadier Division Nordland and the 1st SS Panzer Division Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler, commanded by General Helmuth Weidling, battled to stop the Soviet attack. However, their heroic efforts were unable to overcome the overwhelming power of the Soviet forces. Hence, the fall of Berlin marked the end of the Third Reich. With Hitler dead by his own hand in his underground bunker and the country occupied by Allied forces, the German High Command had no choice but to agree to unconditional surrender. And the future of the SS soldiers was obviously dark. As the echoes of war began to disappear across Europe, a new chapter in the post-World War II era emerged. Now victorious, the Allied troops devoted themselves to finding the culprits of the horrible horrors. Among these criminals were the members of the Schutzstaffel, or SS. The hunt began. Thus, the search for SS members started aggressively. In an effort to capture war criminals, Allied troops employed a number of techniques to track down and capture SS personnel. One of the most specific indicators of SS membership was the blood type tattoo, which all SS members were required to have. Usually seen on the left arm, these tattoos were designed to quickly identify blood type in case of an accident. They also functioned as a lasting reminder of their SS membership. But what the Allied forces discovered about these tattoos changed everything. During their searches, they found that many members of the SS took extreme measures to conceal their tattoos. In an attempt to evade detection, some SS soldiers attempted to cover up their tattoos with chemical products, while others sliced the flesh where they were, leaving horrifying scars. Despite these efforts, the Allies created strategies to identify SS members. Using informants was one of the best identifying strategies. Many former SS members betrayed their fellows, giving the Allies important data in return for forgiveness. As a result, several high-ranking SS officials and soldiers who had fled were captured. But that's not it. In order to identify SS members, the Allies also used forensic methods, such as looking at fingerprints and dental records. Hence, they did whatever they can to find SS members. However, the fate of SS soldiers that surrendered to the Red Army was even more horrifying than the trials and legal justice that the Western Allies prioritized. The Soviet Union, which bore the greatest part of the Nazi invasion, pursued revenge in ways that still haunt survivors. Seeing the SS as the epitome of Nazi cruelty, they decided to set an example of them. So what happened next still haunts survivors. Within the immense expanse of the Soviet Union, whole divisions of SS troops just disappeared. Those who gave up were quickly taken to isolated areas and denied access to any kind of connection with the outside world. These individuals endured the harsh Gulag system, which was a network of forced labor camps located throughout the Soviet Union. The conditions in these camps were frightening. Inmates endured tough labor, often in severe conditions, with little access to food and medical care. There were many deaths from sickness and malnutrition. Also, soldiers who went to these camps seldom came back, and those who did were changed forever. Moreover, the Soviet leaders frequently carried out mass killings in an effort to enforce ruthless justice. Whole groups of criminals were frequently lined up, shot, and their remains were ruthlessly buried in mass graves. These killings happened in remote areas, away from the prying eyes of the world community. One particularly troubling method involved the mass execution of SS detainees in isolated locations, usually in barren fields or woodlands. Before being shot, the victims had to dig their own graves, serving as a dark reminder of their impending death. With merciless efficiency, the executions were performed, and the bodies were quickly covered to hide the sight of them. As a kind of psychological warfare, the killings were often performed in front of other prisoners. The sight of their fellow soldiers being mercilessly murdered was an awful reminder to those who survived. And then there were the Nuremberg Trials. Held for the purpose of bringing Nazi war criminals to justice, the Nuremberg Trials were a series of 13 trials carried out in Nuremberg, Germany, between 1945 and 1949. These trials reflected the height of Allied efforts to bring Nazi war criminals to justice. During the trial of Reich Main's Security Office RSHA Chief Ernst Kaltenbrunner, the magnitude of the SS's role in the Holocaust and other crimes was exposed. Even experienced investigators were shocked by the evidence that was revealed during his trial. The world witnessed the methodical murder of millions of Jews, Romani, and other oppressed people besides other crimes carried out by the SS. Eventually, Kaltenbrunner was given a hanging death sentence after the tribunal dismissed his defense, which said he was only carrying out the commands. The Malmedy Massacre trials were a further significant event in the post-war evaluation. During these trials, 74 members of the SS were accused of killing American prisoners of war during the Battle of the Bulge. With inmates being shot dead in brutal manner, the massacre had been a heartless example of SS barbarism. Joachim Peiper, one of the main culprits of the massacre, was under constant investigation. Peiper, who was one of Hitler's most devoted officers, had planned the massacre, and his trial exposed the SS's utter brutality. One of the most horrific war crimes throughout the conflict was the slaughter of more than 80 American prisoners of war by SS forces led by Joachim Peiper. There was a great deal of discussion during the hearings over the proper penalty for the offenders, with some arguing for leniency due to the chaotic nature of war. However, the narrative gained even more attention after Peiper's mysterious death in France years later. Numerous scenarios were proposed regarding his death, like retaliatory assaults by Jewish or French resistance veterans. But regardless of the mystery surrounding Peiper's death, no one was ever accused or found guilty. Also, the psychological toll on SS personnel who survived the war and its subsequent aftermath was enormous. Their lives were plagued by the constant fear of being found out and punished. So many lived in never-ending anxiety, haunted by the horrible acts they had carried out, along with the knowledge that they could be captured and prosecuted at any moment. Moreover, The desperate attempts to conceal their identity frequently resulted in psychological and bodily harm. Those who disfigured their bodies to get rid of the blood-type tattoos bore the emotional and physical consequences of their acts. Their mental state was also worsened by the humiliation and remorse they felt about their previous actions. Although some members of the SS never repented, many others were haunted by the memory of the horrible things they had done. Their consciences were troubled by the harsh reality of their misdeeds, which resulted in anxiety, grief, and in certain situations, suicide thoughts. But that's not it. The social rejection and shame associated with being a former member of SS made their psychotic issues much worse. Communities frequently excluded them, and it was extremely difficult for them to reconstruct their lives and find secure employment. They were always on edge because they were afraid of being identified, and because justice-seeking organizations were always after them. So HIAG, the Organization for Former Waffen-SS Members, was founded in the early 1950s. HIAG had more than 20,000 members, and it tried to present the SS as decent troops who were only carrying out instructions. By presenting themselves as misunderstood nationalists rather than war criminals, its members aimed to change the course of history. To support its revised narrative, HIAG planned events and published newsletters. But the public and worldwide society strongly criticized the organization, viewing their attempts at rehabilitation as a disrespect to the memory of those who died in the Holocaust and other horrors. So their efforts were met with strong opposition, and the legacy of the SS remained stained. Hence, the years following World War II were a period of reckoning, during which the world sought justice for the unspeakable horrors committed by the SS members. The dark era of the SS ended brutally with endless hunts, terrifying revelations, and massive trials. Crucial factors in this process were the blood-type tattoos that identified the SS soldiers, the ruthless revenge carried out by the Soviet Union, as well as the historic Nuremberg Trials. A depressing reminder of the consequences of war and the depths of human wickedness were the psychological wounds inflicted on both the victims and the perpetrators. The recollections of these incidents still plague the survivors regardless of whether they were SS victims or former SS members. So the horrific end of SS members following World War II is an eerie reminder of the never-ending search for justice, the significant influence of accountability, and the constant struggle against evil. As the world moves forward, the lessons learned from this violent period will continue to guide the quest for a more just and humane future. Now, if we ask you, which revelation shocked you most? Tell us in the comments section below. To uncover more dark truths they don't want you to know, make sure to hit that subscribe button and wait until you see what we discovered about Hitler's final hours.